Add another one to the list of things that I thought we would never actually talk about here on the YouTube channel. Today we're diving into aggression, and a study from RotoWire.com that dives into the most aggressive NHL teams from 2024-2025. Now, I'm making this video with a focus on two teams in particular. There are two of my favorites, Vancouver and Detroit. Because while it's true that I care about these teams, their results on this study are actually really different, and it opens the door for a pretty interesting conversation here. So this article was published on September 3rd, 2:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it was published by Jim Tomlin. It's an interesting look at the most and least aggressive NHL teams, exploring how hits and fights impacted their success. Let's read the opening two paragraphs here. Hard checks, rough stuff around the boards, and the occasional fights are all part of hockey's physical appeal. The fact that world-class players deliver those checks while on skates makes the athletes even more impressive, and it helps make NHL betting such an exciting option. RotoWire.com wanted to know which NHL teams were the most and least aggressive in the league last season. We ranked teams based on a total number of hits and fights in 24-25. The lower the average ranking, the higher the team was for both total fights and hits during the regular season. So essentially what that means is the most aggressive teams are ranked from 1 all the way to 32, and their average ranking is displayed here. If the average ranking is higher, that means the team had less hits and fights throughout the course of the regular season. The lower the average ranking, the higher the team was in terms of total fights and hits. The number one team in the NHL for aggression this previous campaign was the Boston Bruins, who had a ranking of 4. They're the first overall team in the league, followed closely by Vancouver, who had a ranking of 4.5. Follow that up by the Nashville Predators, and then the inevitable Stanley Cup champs in the Florida Panthers. Now I'll say this. Florida's not being number one here. I don't know if that includes the playoffs. Like, if this calculation of checks and fights and all that included the Stanley Cup postseason, then maybe Florida would actually have been higher. Who knows? But still, they are listed as one of the top teams. They're 4th overall. That's kind of reasonably where we would have expected them to be, if not in the top 3. But Vancouver is also ranked here as one of the most aggressive teams. And I'm just going to go out there and say, I think the fact that Kiefer Sherwood was on Vancouver contributed to maybe like 50% of the team's total hits. I mean, the guy set the record for the most hits in an NHL season, and he beat it by a long shot. So the fact that his team is listed out here as one of the most aggressive, I think Kiefer Sherwood has a pretty big hand in why Vancouver was out there. But as to the rest of the lineup, I mean, there were still some other aggressive guys and hard forecheckers, players that would not be afraid to bring the boom in Vancouver's lineup. And then for Boston, number 1, we know they have that reputation. They're big, they're mean, they've got Nikita Zadorov on the back end. Say what you want about how good they are, but they were bringing the boom. It's kind of interesting because these top teams here, spare Florida, were all kind of, not great in the regular season. San Jose, really not good. Nashville, Vancouver, Boston, all disappointing this previous campaign. Only Florida is really like the only good team that is in the top of the most aggressive teams list. You can say Toronto, they're tied for number 10 here, but they're down there with a ranking of 13. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the league, the least aggressive team in the NHL was Dallas, followed shortly by Pittsburgh, Edmonton, and the Detroit Red Wings. Kind of interesting how the Oilers are one of the least aggressive teams in the league, yet they made the finals 2 years in a row. Who knows if the new additions this season will help them climb up this list a little bit more. I'm thinking about Isaac Howard, I'm thinking about Vasily Podkolzin, Andrew Mangiapane. Can these guys add some more aggression? The article then dives into the data. It was gathered from MoneyPuck.com on hits during 24-25, and they consulted HockeyFights.com to find the most and least fights per team. The Florida Panthers were one of the best teams, and then you also have yourselves the analysis here. Does that mean having a team full of big hitters is the key to success? Not necessarily. The teams in second, Vancouver with 2,065 hits, third, Boston with 2,053 hits, and fifth, the Rangers with 1,928 hits, they all missed the playoffs. Canucks right wing Kiefer Sherwood had 462 hits to lead the NHL, but only 35 penalty minutes, proving that you don't need to be dirty to be a hard hitter. At BetMGM Sportsbook, the Panthers are okay, we're going to skip over that. I wanted to talk about the Detroit Red Wings as well. There is a little bit of a talk on Vancouver, but I wanted to focus on Detroit because this article was posted by Kevin Allen on Detroit Hockey Now, diving into how the Wings are amongst the NHL's least aggressive teams. A study and story by RotoWire says that in 24-25, Detroit were among the NHL's least aggressive teams. Now, the article does some really interesting crunching as well. It talks about how the Red Wings, they said publicly they would like to become a tougher team, but there is evidence in the ranking itself that leads to a conclusion that roughing it up doesn't help as much as we think it does. Of the 10 most aggressive teams last season, only the Florida Panthers, Blues, and Senators made the playoffs. Meanwhile, the least aggressive group includes the Stars and Oilers, who both went far in the playoffs. The Oilers reached the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Stars reached the Conference Finals. The Lightning, the Jets, and the Golden Knights win plenty of games, while being rather low on the list of aggressive teams. Now, this is where we dive into some of the Detroit analysis posted out there by Kevin Allen. When it comes to the number of hits, the Red Wings ranked 24th with an average of 1894 per game. The Lightning, who have 1743 per game, is the only Atlantic Division opponent with fewer hits per game than Detroit. The Red Wings' raw hits totals for the 24-25 season, it was 1,570, and 40.5% of those came from four guys: Seider, Kasper, Rasmussen, and Sherratt. While the study shows that being aggressive doesn't guarantee NHL team success, the general consensus around the league remains that team toughness is important, particularly in the playoffs. The Red Wings have a heavy hitter in the pipeline in D-man Anton Johannesson. Michael Brandstad-Nygård, the 2023 first-rounder, has some pushback in his game, but adding size and toughness is still one of the objectives the Red Wings have when they look at acquiring players. The issue is that teams don't often make those kinds of players available for trade. Well, Luke Schenn was available for trade earlier last season, but then again, I get it, the Red Wings were not going to go out there and get him. Ultimately, though, I do think it's rather interesting how these results have such variance in regards to the teams that were good and the teams that were bad, both at the top and the bottom of the list. It's a really good point here. The bottom of the list has Dallas, Edmonton, Vegas, Winnipeg, and Tampa, all relatively good teams. You can say the Red Wings are right in there, but of course, they lack some of the goaltending and top-tier forward support that some of these other teams have. Don't get me wrong, Lucas Raymond and Larkin are great, but they're not Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Dallas has a lot of depth, Tampa Bay has some star power, Winnipeg has the best goalie in the world, Detroit is just kind of in there. And then you have the Pittsburgh Penguins that were old and aging out this previous campaign. Ultimately, it is a very diverse list, and for Vancouver and Detroit specifically, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below how this ranking shapes up. For Vancouver, you can say Quinn Hughes' comments reign true here, how the Canucks can be the most hardworking team on the ice every night, and that's what they need to do to find success. It showed in terms of their aggression this previous campaign, but it didn't really bode into positive results in the wins and losses. Meanwhile, for the Red Wings, they're one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to aggression. Where do you think that's going to go in 25-26? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.